I want to talk about dating and how that's evolved since you started speaking 20 years ago, because the complaint I often hear, you often hear, no doubt, I'm sure, is women saying, like, I don't get asked out, or men don't, they don't want to date, or I see, and I know so many beautiful women in their 20s and their 30s who still aren't married, and it can be heartbreaking. I don't mean to blame this all on the dudes, but...
It's an epidemic. Because I think, and when I talk to women, I'll go to a daily mass at noon downtown in some city while I'm speaking, and you see all these attractive, young, single, professional women there, devout, and the guys aren't anywhere around. Or you go to Catholic young adult community sometimes, and it's 4-to-1, young single women, and I think what's going on is in China, they've had this one-child policy for decades, and as a result, if you can only have one kid in China, you want a male. Passes on the family name. The males are esteemed so much more highly than the women. So the female babies are being aborted at an exponential rate compared to the male babies. Now that this has been going on for enough generations, you have a lot of single young Chinese males that are looking for a mate, and she's not there because they were aborted by the millions, and they're looking around and they're gone. I think we're having the opposite problem in America because of pornography, that men have been emasculated to such an extent that the women are reaching a level of marriage age and maturity, and the guys are 24, but they're 12 years old emotionally. They're still playing their video games at home. They're afraid to ask a girl out without an app. They don't even know how to ask the girl out. And so the women are looking around like, wait a minute, God, I'm ready to raise a family and start having kids and doing this, but where are the decent guys? They're hooked on porn and they're playing video games and they're just not ready. And so, but there are good guys out there that aren't emasculated by porn, but that just don't know how to begin a relationship. They don't know where to initiate. And I think because they don't know what to do, they get a little bit frozen.
Mm-hmm. And this is why you wrote this book, The Dating Blueprint. Is this out yet or no?
It just came out yesterday.
So this is going to come out. We're going to release this episode, I'm thinking, like Friday or thereabouts. So it'll be out.
It just came out right now.
So
right now.
No matter when we release it, it's going to be out.
Yeah.
So tell us about this book and how you did it.
So we did the girls' book, How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul, and all the girls like, where's the book? Where's the book for guys? And the guys like, I'm like, oh, guys don't read. But then the guys kept asking me, guys kept asking me, like, no, we really need something. And so I started to write the book for guys, and I just felt like the book was kind of missing something, like its heart, its soul was kind of missing. And so what I did is I got online through Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and I said, girls, I'm writing a book for the guys, and I need your input. Yeah. How would you want a guy to ask you out? Okay. How would you not want a guy to ask you out? Hey, let's say it's not going great. How would you want a guy to explain that to you instead of ghosting? And what kind of stuff, if a guy has in his life, do you want him to get rid of before he even asks you out to begin with? So I asked these tough questions because I realized, like, men do really well if we have specific guidelines.
Absolutely.
And if we're spoken to in generalities, it's meaningless. Be a gentleman.
Be a gentleman.
Like my wife says, I need more help around the house. I'm like, house big. She's like, take out the trash. I'm like, okay, now this is a conversation. Yeah. So I realized with the guys, well, what they're lacking is specifics. And so I went to the girls to get the specifics because they expect the men to know it, but they don't feel it's their place to tell them. Now, you should have done this that way. And so, but I told the girls, hey, you tell me and I'll tell them. Boy, did the floodgates open.
So you do this on Facebook? Where'd you do it?
It was on Facebook, it was on Instagram, Twitter to send it over, and YouTube. And literally within hours, the women, more than 1,500 women had submitted more than 30,000 words of content.
Which is longer
than the entire book was at that point. But it was gold. And I was going through this stuff, and I'm like, man, I wish I knew this when I was 20, and it was just, so I put all their advice into different little boxes. Okay, this is asking her out, and this is this, and dating etiquette, and this, that. And then I just started picking the best quotes from all of it, and I can't believe how much I learned through the whole process from beginning to end. And just the harmony between what all these women desired, whether they were posting from Brazil or the Ukraine or America, it was all the same problems, and it was all the same longings. And so in the book, the third chapter is the longest, and that's where I get into, because like the first chapter is like, okay, I asked the girls, what do you want the guy to get out of his life before he asks you out? 4-to-1, the most common response was porn. Like, don't ask me out until you're done with that stuff. And so the first chapter goes into that. Second chapter is like discernment. When should you date and who should you date? And I kind of give them this little grid, like right girl, right time, wrong girl, wrong time. How do you know which one you're landed on? And, those questions of when and discernment dating. Then the third chapter is kind of, this is how to ask her out. And that's the meat and the soul of the whole book, where we walk them through the dating etiquette from A to Z. How to ask her out. And the input we got from the girls in that chapter was gold.
So what are some of the things that they said to you on Facebook and Instagram? What did you learn?
Well, I wrote some of them down. I wrote 2 pages of some of the stuff. First thing, like, they do not want to be asked out in a text message. This one girl said, "Let me just say," and she has 4 Y's, and it's all caps. So the Kelly Core School of Texting, what that means. Let me just say, the easier it is to ask a lady out, the easier it is for the lady to say no. I was like, huh. And so when a guy asks her out through a text message, girls see it as cowardly and insincere because you're hiding behind a screen. And so when a guy asks a girl out face to face, there's a couple benefits. One, it shows you have a little bit of confidence. So that makes you a little bit more attractive. But also, it makes her feel more attractive because she's not stupid. She knows you're putting it online. She knows you're facing rejection, which means this guy values me enough to face the fear of rejection face to face, which makes me feel special. And so, as opposed to he's hiding behind a screen, one of the girls was interesting. She said, if anything, I'll decline the offer if he asks me out through text, even if I do want to go out with a guy, only because he asked out over a text. Now, vice versa, if a guy were to ask me out in person and me not want to go out with him, I'd probably give it a shot just because he was confident enough for the challenge. Yeah. And so that was the first gem, is it needs to be face-to-face.
Okay.
Second thing that I found interesting, the clarity, women wanted you to say the word date when you ask them out.
Okay.
Not, hey, you want to hang out sometime? You want to go get some coffee? We should get together sometime. Because the girl's like, hang out? What does he mean? Because girls overthink everything. And so, like, what is he asking for? So listen.
I just want to point out that you just said girls overthink everything, and that's going to be a takeaway from some angry person.
It's in here.
That is
Leave
true.
it in the comments section. No, that was something a girl said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so blame it on her.
Yeah.
So one girl said,
now he's blaming women. Continue.
That's what it's all about, the Matt Fradd Show. Lots of guys will ask us if we want to hang out. No, we don't want to hang out. We have plenty of girlfriends to hang out with. What we want is for you to take us to do something fun that allows us to get to know each other better. Yes. One girl said, do not say, do you want to hang out? I've heard several guys ask me that, and it's so frustrating because I'm wondering, like, are we just two friends getting together? Is this a date? Is he trying to pursue me? What is this? It's so confusing. I just wish a guy would say, hey, I'd really like to get to know you better. Can I take you on a date? Because, quote, being vague does not exactly make a girl go weak at the knees.
That is a very good line.
Oh, it's gold. And then so no texting, and then you got to use the word date. Third thing is no intermediaries. Basically, don't ask your friend to ask her friend if she likes you. Okay, look, 6th grade is over, guys, all right? Yeah. And one girl said, look, our relationship is between us, not the extra people around us. Be intentional, be clear, be courageous. Another thing, when a guy risks it, it shows, even if he's nervous, it shows he has some confidence. One woman said, I can't even imagine being with a guy who won't take any risk. And so you've got to be able to have the guts to put it on the line instead of hiding behind Tinder, to buffet the blows of rejection. Another one is a planet. Women do not want to go on a movie for a first date, universally. One girl said, movie? No, just no. Like, wow. All right, then. She said, if you go on a date with me, take me somewhere we get to talk and actually get to know each other. You can't do that in silence for 2 hours at a movie. Yeah. Date, go on a movie, 3rd or 4th date, not the 1st or 2nd.
Excellent. That's really good.
This is my favorite one of all the feedback of 30,000 words. Do not, Matt Fradd, offer a Netflix and chill or take me to a sketchy warehouse or some weird lot and tell me about your felony record, speaking from experience. What? So the moral of the story is if you have to tell a girl about your history of incarceration, you want to take her to a fancy dinner, not a sketchy lot.
Or at least a public place where you can't murder her.
Exactly.
Yeah, she doesn't have to fear for that.
So you never know what she's been through. I asked the girls, like, what's one thing you'd want a guy to stop doing in his life? And one girl put on there, she's like, not going to the duck pond with your ex-girlfriend. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not sure if that's one thing I'm going to tell everybody not to do.
Actually, I did put it in the book. So, this one was interesting. She said, pace yourself. She says, don't tell me you want to marry me, call to marry me. Discernment is done with the person, not for or about them before you even date. And so this idea that I'll do the sermon and then I'll choose you, instead of like, no, we discern together. This is a process. Now, if she says no, I remember you got to take it gracefully. Paul Kim once said, hey, look, if she says no, that's fine. You've just narrowed down your search for your future spouse by one person. And to me, if she says no, it's kind of asking a girl out is kind of a win-win because you either end up with a date or you end up with clarity, either of which is better than being uncertain and alone. And so you got to put it out there. And then the last couple things, one, no ghosting.
Yeah, this is a new term that old people like me have just heard about.
Yeah. And ghosting is when you express an initial attraction and then you kind of lose interest and fade into oblivion. Yeah. And for girls, it's torturous because it's like, okay, where are you? Like, do you like another girl, or are you just really busy? Did you get abducted by aliens? Like, what exactly is going on? And what's going on is the guy doesn't really have the character to have a hard conversation. And so, well, I don't want to hurt her, so I'll just disappear. But that's torturous to the girls because they end up, for months feeling like, what did I do wrong? Like, is he coming back? What is going on?
Yeah, she would much rather him say, I'm not interested anymore.
And that's what they said. This was great. She said, an ending to a relationship should be just as intentional and clear as our first date. And so what's interesting is like, if I want to ask a girl out, it requires some vulnerability, some honesty, some courage, some confidence, sincerity.
Yeah.
But that's kind of easy to muster up because there's something in it for me because I might end up with a date.
Yeah.
But how about when it comes time to saying goodbye? Am I willing to be honest and sincere and all these things when there's nothing in it for me?
Yeah.
There's only in it something for her, for clarity. That's a much better mark of a gentleman. And it was funny, while I was writing this whole thing, I had quit my gym because I wanted to find a new one. So I was trying out all these different CrossFit gyms and trying to switch over to that. And I got free memberships for a week in 3 gyms, and I was trying them out and doing all this stuff. And then I picked one. I'm like, I really like this one. It was the most intense. There's a Nike commercial film there. The trainers were awesome. And then I was getting these texts from one of the managers of the other gym, and he was like, hey, Jason, just want to check in and see if you like your free membership and you want to join. And I had the text, and I'm like, oh, I'll answer that later, because I'm not joining his gym. And I'd work on the book. I'm writing about no ghosting. And then the text comes up, and I'm like, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm doing it. Yeah. Like, I'm a grown man, and I'm ghosting the manager of a CrossFit gym because I don't want to have a hard conversation. I said, you know what? I'm doing it right now. And I texted it, and I said, hey, I really appreciate, the training, the sessions. I had a good time, but I ended up picking a gym closer to my kid's school. I wish you all the best. 2 minutes later, text me, hey, man, thank you a lot for let me know. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that is a common occurrence of men not writing back or women not writing back because that's an awkward conversation. You don't want to have it.
Yeah, and we need to grow up and have them.
Yeah.
And because we can't all marry everybody. Not every relationship's going to work out.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're freeing up that person to find someone who could be a better match for them, instead of dragging things on and this lack of clarity. But one girl added, she said, don't then pop back in when it's convenient for you and use me as your emotional fidget spinner, as my friend put it, whenever you're bored. Meaning, if you're going to break up, at least commit to the breakup. Instead of floating back in and out and leaving this girl wondering for 6 months what on earth is going on. And so a big piece of all this is intentionality and clarity. And it's funny, when I was writing it, I kind of had this flashback. I dated this girl in college for 2 years. We had a wonderful, awesome relationship. And as it was kind of coming to a close and we were breaking up, we're still really good friends. She shared with me, Jason, one thing that kind of bothered me when we dated for these last 2 years is that you never really asked me out. And I'm like, huh? What? And like outside, I'm kind of playing it cool, but inside my brain is like fact checking, like CNN during a Trump debate. Like, you said what? That can't be wrong. Find the facts. Yeah. So my brain is like fact checking. Like, no, I must have asked her out. Like when we went to Florida, when she met my parents, she's right. I never asked her out. And then I kind of thought, I did the same thing with the last 2 girls I dated in college. I dated 3 girls for a total of 5 years in college, and I never asked a single one of them out. And with one, we were in trying on wedding rings. And what had happened?
What? You were trying on wedding rings with a girl and you never asked her out?
Yeah, I never asked her out. But we were dating for 2 years because it just evolved into it. Because I'm like, we're friends. Now we're hanging out with group friends. Now we're going to kind of go solo.
Yeah.
And it was obvious to everybody in the world that we're dating, obvious except perhaps to her.
Wow.
And then within a couple of years of it is obvious, we're committed. But I realized like, wow. And I wasn't trying to avoid commitment or rejection. It was just like, hey, we just kind of morphed into a dating relationship.
Yeah.
But this is pandemic, where people right now, we have a culture of single people who pretend like they're dating. We have a culture of dating people who behave like they're married. Now we have a culture of married people who think they're single. Everything's out of order.
Wow.
And so we need to quit sliding into the next stage, meaning, okay, I want to be with that guy, so I'm going to hook up with him, and then maybe he'll commit to me. Oh, I really like this person. Now we're dating. We'll live together before we get married. We're not deciding into these stages of relationships with clarity. We're just morphing from one into the other, evolving. But I think we want the clarity. But it involves guys knowing you need to be intentional.
Hey, if you enjoyed that clip, you will absolutely love the full interview, so click right there to enjoy the whole thing. Also, a big thanks to these groups who made that interview possible. Learn more in the show notes below about these guys. They're absolutely incredible and honored to have them as sponsors. Oh, and also, if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe and then that bell button. That way YouTube will be forced to let you know when we put out more content.